In this video, I'll show you how to configure representations for the analysis step we created in the previous video. Select the step and add a representation. You can also copy an existing representation and modify it. First, specify the way in which the data is visualized. You can choose from several standard chart types that come with APF, or you can use a table. If there's an asterisk in front of the chart type, it means that the measures and dimensions selected on the step level are not sufficient to configure the chart type. Depending on the visualization you choose, the set of fields offered can be different. For example, there are more fields for the bubble chart, but fewer fields for the pie chart. In this example, we'll stick to the column chart. As you can see, the dimension for the horizontal axis and the measure for the vertical axis are already filled by default, but you can change them if you need to. You can choose from those properties that you've specified on step level and assign them to the axes and legend of the chart. You can also define the labels used on the UI. The default label texts provided by the service are already displayed. You can overwrite them, but for now, let's just keep them as they are. For this chart type, you can also define whether it should be sorted by certain fields or whether it should be sorted in ascending or descending order. The last thing you can configure is the corner texts for the thumbnail at runtime. As you saw in the previous video, these texts can also be maintained at step level. The entries at step level are copied to each representation. You can also enter or change texts here in the representation. If you do so, they take precedence over the corresponding texts entered at step level and are shown at runtime. You can now check the configuration you just made in a preview with dummy data. At runtime, each chart representation also has an alternative list view that you can switch to at any time to see the exact figures at a glance. You just saw how to configure a representation. Next, I'll show you how to configure filters.